Hi, everyone. I'm Sergei Ostapenko from Mira Commerce, and today I'm joined by Travis Hess, the CEO of Commerce.com, which some of you know as BigCommerce Holdings formerly. Under his leadership, the company has rebranded and repositioned itself on the forefront of AI-driven e-commerce technology, bringing together BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and Makeswift products under one unified vision. And so today, we're going to dive into what this transformation really means for us as partners and BigCommerce and Commerce clients, how the platform is evolving, and what merchants and partners should expect in the months ahead. So, Travis, thank you for being here with me today.
Of course, Sergey. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's deep dive into that right away. You've announced that BigCommerce Holdings is now Commerce.com, and that you're unifying three products under one umbrella parent brand. And you are focusing now on everything AI driven, agentic commerce and things like that. So what does that all mean? What is the strategic rationale behind doing that?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons that I've tried to be as public as possible about. One, just foundationally, we had three products. Not everyone necessarily associated one with another. Like as an example, I've used a number of examples from when I interviewed here. I didn't even know BigCommerce owned Feedonomics as an example. So you've got three products, some more well known than others, some serving different cohorts than others. It was just an obvious scenario and a go to market motion to unify them all under one parent brand. We can debate what that name is or isn't, which is a different conversation. But I felt like to get the go to market motion right, we needed to centralize under one brand. It would just be an easier, more holistic story. And then in parallel to that, also integrate those products organizationally, operationally, technically into the broader company as well, which had not yet been the case. A lot of duplicative efforts, as you can imagine, like Feedonomics, as an example, ran their own marketing department, as did BigCommerce. So a lot of duplicity there. We've taken care of a lot of that stuff, a lot of inefficiency, and at the same time, a lot of goodness respectfully within those three brands, culturally, human capital wise, technically, and really wanted to ingest sort of the best in class capabilities respectfully of those different products into the culture, into the organization, into the roadmap, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a logistical thing. It was a go to market thing. And I think honestly, it was an efficiency move to try to get everything under one group that just kind of keeps everybody on the same page and delivers a more cohesive and authentic message in market was the spirit behind all of it, really.
But explain to me, as a partner of commerce, what this really means. Is it repositioning or is it materially different from the previous messaging? Because there's been goodness shared and cross-pollinating between these products before. But how is this going to be different? In prospect conversations today, we are hearing already that we are considering big commerce. Or is it commerce now? Or what's the difference? We don't really understand.
Yeah. I mean, BigCommerce isn't going away. Neither is Feedonomics. Neither is Makeswift. So think of it as a holding or portfolio company, so to speak, that happened to take the category name, which again makes it maybe feel even broader. But no, BigCommerce as a brand, we feel has equity, and as does Feedonomics certainly, and as does Makeswift in their own regards, and that's going to continue to be the extent in the short term and medium term and presumably long term. I don't know. Maybe we'll morph all into commerce at some point someday. But for now, there's enough brand equity within those respective products. On the partner side, obviously, we're in the process of continuing to morph that partnership team is now together. We've transformed. As you know, we've been through a lot of transformation organizationally within the business. We're doing it in a public market. It's not always as smooth or as fast as we would like. But we do think there is a better together story here for partners. It brings in skill sets. I think it expands what partners can sell and align themselves to and invest in a broader, more holistic motion that I think lends itself more to transformation, which is where I think a lot of the value is more broadly independent of the product, whether that's organizational transformation around human capital or the way businesses are structured and the way they absorb and take advantage of the tech, certainly. And then lastly, with a lot of the agentic and the AI stuff, it's obviously sucking a lot of the air out of the room everywhere. It's dominating LinkedIn conversations, things like that. Obviously, I think we made a bet many months back to embrace it more at first organizationally. Like, how does it make us more efficient internally and do things more at scale, especially as we ramp up revenue generation and quota carrying capacity? Like, how do we enable and train people faster and go to market faster? But at the same time, obviously infusing it more so into our product suite and then wrapping it in where we feel the market is going. So I don't think we're divorcing ourselves or departing from what BigCommerce, as an example, as a platform represented for a long, long time, which is open composability, the ability to extend and customize that platform that maps to our ideal customer profiles and our partners like yourselves that we've done a lot of joint investment and go-to-market muscle with. So I don't think we're deviating from that path. We feel like this actually plays into the bigger, broader narrative. None of that is changing. We're just trying to ingest it more holistically in a way that maps to what the demand is in market. And right now, a lot of the demand on the B2C side and what's sucking a lot of the air of the room is around discovery right now by way of consumer behavior changing with obviously all the agentic tooling and the answer engines and LLMs. So you're seeing a lot of that right now just because it's front and center, but we feel like it plays very tangibly into what it is we've already been doing with BC.
Well, let me be a devil's advocate here and challenge you with this question. So we see a lot of harsh critics of BigCommerce out there and now commerce.com. And some of them would claim that, oh, this is just all smoke and mirrors and that the product has not really changed and the company is just responding or reacting to the AI filled buzzword world and that the underlying product functionality hasn't changed. And so what really has changed over the past 12 months since you were here in this capacity? And where are you making the immediate investments as opposed to just putting this on the roadmap right now?
Fair. I mean, all fair questions and outside critique, certainly. Well, first and foremost, the first thing that changed was the shape of the organization, obviously, and senior leadership that has been very public. And it's hard to have those conversations. I don't talk about them a lot because I want to be very respectful of the value and the inputs that previous leaders have had in this business, quite frankly. And it's hard to talk about it without it being just dismissed as like, well, geez, you upgraded a bunch of things. I brought in many new people for a myriad of reasons, and not to take anything away from the amazing people that have spent years here building what I inherited, which is hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, a publicly traded platform for all the differences others may have about what it is that we've done. There was a lot of talent here that's contributed over the years. I felt like where we needed to take this business required a change in the way that we're structured. I kind of alluded to it earlier about integrating these products. And I also alluded to it in the fact that I wanted to bring in leaders that I felt were going to help accelerate and align to the vision. So first and foremost, what changed most notably was the human capital leadership team and obviously the organizational shape and integrating everything it is that we're doing. At the same time, we've been very deliberate. I think a criticism of the business I've had is not a disjointed roadmap, but I think one where we tried to do too many things at once. And as a result, left some unintentional sort of gaps of just not being able to do everything for everyone. And we really needed a reboot on prioritization and where we wanted to focus and place our bets, everything from go-to-market to product strategy and things like that. And so we've been very deliberate about prioritizing things through our offerings group, which I've talked about publicly, deliberately wide B2B, B2C, and small business. Those are the three really wide cohorts that we service. Certainly, I see them more as markets, obviously. And then within each one, there are certainly niches that will expand over time. But really getting everyone on the same page as to where it is we're going to place our bets, where it is we're going to invest. And yeah, not all of those changes are certainly public, but I would argue that there are a lot of things we've put out in the product suite, maybe not as quickly as some have expected or wanted, but that is an ongoing fluid sort of process, and ingesting kind of everything else that we're doing here, we feel like we've made a lot of progress. So are the products dramatically different per se? No, I think in the case of Feedonomics, it was already serving a very mature enterprise client base around product and data optimization, synthesis, and syndication that now happens to also apply quite deeply to the answer engines and the LLMs. So it's not like we're reinventing that product. We're making it better. We're making it leaner. We're making it more robust based on what the market demand is. So yes, it has changed quite materially, but the foundational element it has not. And the same thing for BigCommerce. I think, in my opinion, where we all are in agentic right now, it's around discovery. That will then morph into shopping. And when it moves into shopping, it's going to bring composability and orchestration, a lot of other things that are quite tangibly related to what we've done with the product front and center. It's just not at that point yet. So what you're hearing right now in messaging is more oriented to the discoverability side of it, but it will quickly move into orchestration and composability and being open to things like that. So again, I don't think this is like a we're sprinkling fairy dust on here and all of a sudden trying to be cool, we're leaning into AI. It's a necessity to stay relevant. And I think everyone else is doing it. We're trying to be very pragmatic about where we apply that and where we feel like it's going to drive the maximum amount of input for where it is that we're going and who it is that we're serving.
As a partner, I've definitely seen change in tone and the speed of execution of specific feedback that is received from clients and partners like us. And I think that the more attention you pay to that feedback in the next 12 to 18 months, the better off the platform, the core product is going to be. And I'm specifically talking about the BigCommerce as is right now. I'm totally with you on the fact that discovery is way better. Now it's about the promotions engine. Now it's about the options of the checkout, customizability of it, and like things like that would really make a difference and ease the some of the pains that current clients may have. Now, on Feedonomics, you made a comment there. How AI powered is Feedonomics actually versus the human element of curating these catalogs? Is it really fully driven by AI automation right now? What is the status of AI there in Feedonomics?
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is it's both. I mean, the
Mm.
legacy value proposition for Feedonomics, and it has been for many, many years, as it's been known as a bit more white glove, so to speak. So there has been a human element of it. It has been a managed service. It's what we felt and continues to be in some capacities very differentiating in market, particularly for enterprise brands, right? It's not a self-service motion. There's a lot of complexity and a lot of nuance that goes on with that. And enterprise brands, like real enterprise brands, expect that level of service. Now, that being said, obviously, there's always been a lot of machine learning and infusion of AI along the way. That's getting more and more pervasive, obviously, as the technology has evolved, and we'll continue to lean in with that when applicable. But again, it's not so much we're turning into an answer engine. That's not the point here. We're playing a lot with other AI in market to drive value to our merchants. So this isn't, this isn't a pivot. This isn't like trying to wrap this in a way that makes it sound sexier or cooler than what it really is. And it's why I was really deliberate in earnings this past time in the script of mentioning very specific clients who are in closed beta with us and doing a lot of the interesting things that we feel is disruptive to industry and best in class that will continue to build momentum as we move forward, really wanting to draw tangible examples of where we're applying this, as opposed to it just being sort of lip service that we're all of a sudden in the agentic space and we're working with the answer engine. So anyway,
Interesting. Now let's switch to Makeswift, and that is dear and near to me as we build several sites now leveraging Makeswift and Catalyst. And so, what is your long-term play with the Makeswift? Right now, it seems to be like it's described as the intelligent page builder, and it has the workflow, and it's a tool rather than the full-fledged CMS. Are you guys trying to build the next headless CMS out there, or what is the strategy there?
I mean, listen, I guess it depends on how one defines CMS, and I think that definition may and has changed over time. Listen, the reality of that product, and I wasn't here when we acquired it, but with it, not only did we acquire obviously the technical assets, we also acquired a lot of talented folks that
Oh,
came
the
in that
team
are
is great.
now.
Absolutely, the team supporting it is absolutely fantastic.
It's fantastic. And so one of the bigger changes we also made is several leaders of that team are now peanut buttered more broadly with a much wider remit within the BigCommerce organization, or the commerce organization now, as so to speak. And so you're seeing them play a more active role in influencing what we're doing around the BigCommerce platform side and the Feedonomics side, which is really exciting and interesting. That did not happen before. When they were acquired, the first priority was to get this working with Catalyst, right, as a core product for obvious reasons. We have plans of releasing Makeswift on Stencil. Right now, it's looking at kind of early-ish next year. Again, maybe that changes for the better or the worse, but we'll keep people posted on that. We think that's going to be differentiating on the Stencil install base. We think it's a better product than what we have today. We think it's going to drive more merchant value, and anytime we see we can drive more merchant value, we're going to take advantage of it. But yeah, the product itself, we see this evolving as well. I think started with obviously Catalyst. It's going to move into obviously Stencil, and then it's also in parallel right now, and you'll see some of these applications at Summit in a couple of weeks. Some really interesting innovation around how Makeswift is playing with not only just BigCommerce, but also playing with Feedonomics, and how data is driving these really unique experiences at scale, that I think is going to become more front and center as the agentic sort of models and paradigms kind of evolve over time, that this will become more and more clear. And I think longer term, and I've been very public about this, we see Makeswift eventually as a standalone SKU that could be sold, obviously, into a lot of different places, including non-transactional places, right? There's no reason why it can't sit as a visual editor on top of a content or a brand site that's influencing commerce through an offline channel or through an alternative channel. So we see lots of goodness there. It's just we're trying to kind of crawl, walk, run, while occasionally speed walking, depending on the day, to try to get that in market and drive, obviously, merchant value.
Interesting. The headless CMSs now, such as Content Stack, Bloomreach, various others, they're evolving more into the actual CDPs with the acquisition of Lytics, with data management, master data modeling, and then personalization, which is AI driven, plus discovery. These are becoming humongous platforms with great value to the enterprise merchants. So, do you see the play for Makeswift being more of the mid market and SMB side rather than enterprise? What's the target market for that type of the product?
Honestly, I don't know if I can answer that honestly, because I don't have a strong opinion. I think right now it's a bit wider, just given the use cases and some of the things that we're doing. But at the same time, to the content stacks and the contentfuls and others, like, we are very partner forward. So if that happens to be a better application for whatever a
Yeah.
client or a merchant needs, we very much are objective in the sense of we need to make that ingestion and integration as easy as possible to benefit the merchant. This isn't like a religious debate. And there are some and many use cases where these things can happen in combination. The visual editing capabilities within Makeswift, I think, is superior than maybe some of the business user tooling and some of these other tools, where again, they could work in harmony in many use cases as well. I don't think we're trying to back ourselves into a corner and say it's absolutely going to be this. We think it brings value to our merchant base today. We think it plays really well in where the market is actually going. And we also think that it complements a lot of things that we do with partners that have had a much longer runway to build more robust tools and more comprehensive tools as it relates to how you would define DSP or traditional like there are lots of robust, as you know, publishing workflows and different sorts of things for really large enterprise global clients that we have not yet obviously considered in how it is that we apply that product today. It's not to say that we won't consider them in the future. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. It needs to make sense. But oftentimes, if someone's out there doing it best in class today and there's optionality for clients, I don't know why we would go try to replicate that when we could just simply ingest it at scale if that's what the market wants. And sometimes that's what the market wants. They want speed, but they also need ease of use. We've got to make that easy for folks, or it
And I
defeats.
see the strategy actually working out on at least three of my current customers that we just finished the discovery with, where there's been options there in terms of CMS functionality, and they opted consciously for Makeswift with our consulting and recommendation and going to all these third-party vendors and evaluating not just based on the price, but on the overall roadmap and what makes sense for them now versus long term. So we'll see how that plays out. The quick question, aside vector deviation here, is into hosting. So right now, with the trend being that so many merchants want the headless, composable, custom web storefront hostings purchased, we typically go to partners like Vercel, like Netlify, that you guys also work with. Is there something on the roadmap where you guys would consider hosting these sites on Google in your environment, where this becomes an additional add-on service or a product that Commerce will sell?
Yes.
The
And I'll
answer
leave it
is
at that.
yes. You
The
wanna
answer is
expand
yes.
on that?
I'd rather not. I think people can connect the dots. Listen, we love Vercel. I think they're best in class for what it is that they do. They were the first that we partnered with around the hosting side, especially obviously with what it is that we do and our affinity for Next.js and React. We also, to the point I just made a few minutes ago, I think clients like optionality. Vercel isn't for everybody, and that's not any
Yes, for sure.
disrespect towards Vercel. So we, in the spirit of, doing and operating in the best interest of merchants, I think they like optionality. Obviously, Vercel is is an amazing option, but we need to also have other options. And I think different consumption models as well to serve obviously as wide of a TAM as we can that makes sense for our ICP. And as a result, obviously, I don't think going to market with just one hosting provider, albeit an amazing one, is necessarily the long-term answer or the right one per se, just as we're not the only, game in town for them, as an example, right? We're not the best fit for everyone either. So for us, yes, the easy answer is yes. There'll be more to share there, obviously, as things evolve. We're being obviously very deliberate, very pragmatic about how we may or may not make that available. But yes, the intention is to have a hosted version.
Great, great. Let's address one of the elephants in the room, and that's Shopify. And how does the e-com platform BigCommerce within the commerce.com realm is going to continue to differentiate itself? As partners, we clearly see a compelling story there, and we're able to position the product, and we see the differences on the practical use side of things for the operators who use the platforms daily. From your perspective, though, today when people dismiss or disregard BigCommerce as a viable option, and they say that, oh, Shopify is so much bigger, oh, it's so much more advanced on the AI roadmap. There are all these use cases for the enterprise and B2B as well. What is it really that BigCommerce brings to the table that Shopify does not? What's your answer to that?
This is a long-winded answer because I've lived
Oh
in
yeah.
obviously both ecosystems. Listen, people ask me about Shopify all the time for obvious reasons. A, given my current position, and B, where I was previously. I'm very careful and honest about my experience with Shopify. I loved my 5 years in that ecosystem. I have a lot of friends there that I love and respect. I very much believed in what it was that I was doing at the time for a myriad of reasons. And I very much also believe in why I took this job in the first place. And I felt like foundationally, this was more interesting for me, independent of the role, than maybe staying in that ecosystem. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I was in it for 4 or 5 years. Obviously, I believed in it. And I do think they map quite nicely to their ICP. I very much believe for us, authentically, we are not for the easy. We are not for the simple. And again, I don't mean that disrespectful easy. It's not easy to be for the easy and the simple either. And they make that easy. So that in and of itself is genius. I don't want to take anything away from that. I think if you look at our install base and you look at folks like yourself and others that have surrounded themselves around this product, they've bought into similar philosophies. Open composability tends to map better to merchants of different shapes and sizes and markets that just have a bit more nuance to their business. They need more extendability and need more customization, whether they either live in innately complicated industries or they just have unique requirements that many do that just don't fit Shopify's model. And again, that's okay. Just like they have clients that don't fit our model, totally fine too. As it relates to the roadmap, certainly they're way bigger than we are and they're way louder for obvious reasons if you haven't heard. But at the same time, where all the agentic stuff is going and AI is going, listen, they announced some things yesterday. I think it very closely maps to who it is that they serve. I think it's very oriented to SMB. And most brands, including, by the way, SMB and digitally native brands, tend to be pretty protective and particular about their brand thesis. And, they typically stand for things, evoke emotion, especially on the digitally native brand side. And they're going to be very protective about how that brand shows up and where it shows up, and who it shows up next to. So enterprise brands, large brand manufacturers, retailers, B2B, they are going to be very, very particular about how this happens. They're going to want way more control over their data. We feel like it maps much better to what it is that we're doing on the AI front, the roadmap across not only the Feedonomics side right now around discoverability, but eventually into the shopping and the composability side that we're doing with platform that will then backfill back into the data around order and data orchestration as this becomes wildly more complicated as these engines evolve and brands of all shapes and sizes end up having a lot of complexity around orchestration, be that order or data orchestration. So good for them. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We very much believe our strategy going forward aligns in a really nice way going forward and where the market is heading. We've kind of seen this for a long time. I saw it a year ago when I took the job. I don't think I expect it to accelerate as quickly as it has, just with the adoption of these technologies. It's happened way faster than anything else before. And again, I'm excited about the rebrand. I hope it helps crystallize this narrative and the impact because it's more than just a platform. It's more than just a feeder, a data syndication or synthesis play. It's more than just an experience play. oftentimes it's going to be a combination of all three in different applications that will evolve over time as well. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
To be able to execute on that roadmap, you need a pretty sizable war chest. And I want to switch to the financial performance. So you guys have reported the growth of about 3% year over year last quarter. And we've seen and heard your remarks about it. And we've also seen that there's the annual recurring revenue from the enterprise that's a little bit up, but then the number of accounts is a little bit slightly down on the enterprise side. So how are you addressing the churn, and how are you making sure that you're actually winning in the enterprise space going forward? And maybe you can also give a couple of examples of accounts that you've recently added that are true enterprise, that are leveraging your products and generating immense value from it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a good question. I think as far as enterprise accounts sequentially, obviously we're really pleased with the ARPA. That's been steadily increasing over a fairly long period of time, consistently and sequentially. So we're focused on larger merchants, obviously with the integration of the products and releasing more things in market to sell, like self-service Makeswift and Feedonomics as easy examples, and some of these AI capabilities as easy examples. We would expect that creep up to happen more materially and more deliberately. Not to say that we're ignoring the unit count. Certainly, I mean, churn is something that every software company deals with, and for us, some of that just happens. Just macroeconomically, they're just folks that are going to churn because of headwinds macroeconomically. Those are things that are out of our control. The stuff that's in our control, honestly, being more deliberate, more focused in who it is that we're serving. There were probably a couple of use cases and instances where I felt like there were maybe a few merchants that did not fit our ICP that were unintentionally absorbing a lot of resources and a lot of distraction that we were very deliberate in trying to manage in the first half of the year. I think I've been pretty public about that type of stuff. But going forward, being really committed to focus on who it is that we're for and why, and going deeper, not only with that install base and those clients and that focus, but also partners in the same capacity, I think is and investing back into the product in ways that are going to benefit most tangibly and most quickly those merchants that fit the ICP is the real answer of how you address churn. Is just being more focused and more deliberate, and more transparent about where it is we're placing our bets and where it is that we're investing, and trying to communicate that as effectively as possible. As far as like new merchants and things like that, I mean, we don't publicly, I mean, I'll talk about in the script, just in the last earnings, obviously, we wanted to tout some of the larger merchants that we work with, obviously on the Feedonomics side, that we're in kind of closed beta with right now, because again, back to my first point in the interview, like a lot of people don't associate, the Tapestries and the PacSuns and the Revelists and the Dells with the broader portfolio. And we feel like there's a lot of goodness and a lot of learnings there by having these things now integrated as a broader portfolio to understand and inform and prioritize things that we're doing in roadmap. So we'll continue to talk more and more up market and even down market. There's lots of interesting stories that we've got. And we've got some stuff we'll share at Summit coming up, and some interesting, quirky ways that we think are authentic to the broader brands that we'll start amplifying. To be candid, I think Michelle Suzuki, our CMO, has done an amazing job, and her team has done an amazing job shepherding this rebrand. The downside to all of this is she's been in seat since January. She's repurposed that team. We've ingested a lot of stuff. And unfortunately for folks like yourself and others, we've been reasonably dark on the marketing front, particularly with partners and things like that. And for that, and I'll talk about it openly at Summit too, is unintentional. And I am deeply apologetic, having sat in partner shoes. We had to get through we had to metabolize a lot of change to be able to come out, and knowing this rebrand was going to happen, it put us in this weird sort of spot, because our sales and marketing efficiency right now is not great. It needs to improve dramatically. And so we've tried to be very pragmatic about how we do it. But the collateral damage there is we've not done you guys a great service, and others, but it's not been nefarious in nature. It's been unfortunately.
But pivoting to this, in all fairness, the times like these show in the high tide, every ship is afloat. But then when the marketing drains, it really shows who's who and who has the real momentum and the opportunity, and who is differentiating, as opposed to who is just being supported by the endless marketing giveaways by the platform, right? And so as partners, we definitely became more disciplined and focused on the messaging and like what what activations we do and not just counting on the leads coming from you as they did before during the pandemic, which was great for everybody. But you made me think of something. And so let me ask you one more question. So it's not anymore about the shopping cart. Obviously, it's not anymore about a product that you will deploy and it end to end going to solve your commerce problem, digitization and personalization and AI enablement. And a few years ago, before the craze with the GameStop stock, I heard the CIO of GameStop talk at the e-tail, and he said, everybody's trying to sell you their solution, their product, and they're tying you into their ecosystem. Look at the Salesforce, like you're buying all these clouds and then your data is hosted by them, and it's so hard to decouple. And he says, you need to keep two things to yourself, and that is your master data model with all the touch points of your customer and her touch points with the brand, and then your custom logic, custom APIs, custom business rules. And all of this needs to be yours in the cloud and outside of any product out there. And the shopping cart is a shopping cart is a shopping cart. Like there's nothing to be done with that. It needs to be best of breed and highly performant, and everything else should be custom yours that you can carry over to the next phase. And so with that, we are competing in the red ocean here. We are basically taking share from each other in these. The e-com platforms are winning, and if you're not growing at the rate the industry is going, you're losing their share to somebody. Where's the blue ocean for you? Where's the opportunity? Where do you see the next big thing beyond the shopping cart that is going to transform this industry? And I mean, we can say like it's AI, it's LLMs everywhere, like shopping through LLMs and AIs, but that's an obvious shallow question, right? What's
Yeah.
deeper going on? What's under the waves here that's murking in the deep that's going to
Yeah.
be seen in the next months?
I'll answer it from two perspectives, given I've sat on the services side as well. Like if I had my agency hat still on. Let me start with the product side, software side. I think the blue ocean in the space, I think you're going to see the biggest paradigm shift in the history of commerce. Honestly, commerce has been kind of boring the last 7 years.
I
For those
agree.
that have been in the space for a long time, like
Yeah, I
the
agree.
last monumental change in commerce was responsive design. Okay. People got tired of like maintaining three different instances of their website, desktop, mobile, and tablet. And it shaped a movement to go redesign and replatform. It was a convenient time to do all of the above by way of responsive design. And then everything ended up looking fairly templatized and the same. Okay, fine. There really hasn't been a lot since then until, obviously digitally native brands and COVID, obviously, like honestly, prior to COVID, sitting in commerce, you're sort of like sitting on the services side being like, gosh, this isn't really enriching or interesting anymore. Felt like a bit of a race to the bottom on the services side. Everything seemed to be commoditizing. To your point, market share wasn't growing. You're just kind of taking it from somebody else. And then COVID happens, and all of a sudden, there's this monumental shift of, as opposed to 10% of revenues for a multi-channel retailer being in digital and commerce, now it's like 20% permanently. And for a period of time, obviously, it went way higher than that when retail was shut down. So that's changed everything. Uh, since then, it's been kind of boring. I think we're now into the new world where open, composable. I think things will become way more componentized. I think things happen at a much faster pace. I think data, in many regards, is the new storefront in certain capacities. I think data is going to drive a lot of things, discoverability. It will drive experiences, and it will also drive orchestration, which I've talked very openly about over the last, let's use academic terms, semester or two. And with that provides challenge and opportunity. And I think for us, the opportunity the challenge was getting everything under one roof and a narrative that actually landed and made sense, and getting the right team in place and things, the stabilization that we can go operate against the model going forward at velocity and speed and focus. So a lot of the effort we've been doing is just doing a lot of that stuff. We're excited now to get into execution mode. The market, though, I think is going to change dramatically, and I think you're going to see this evolve in a way that foundationally those with the most enhanced credible data and syndication capabilities in tech without being a monolith. Like I don't have to commercialize this in a certain way because I operate commercially as a bank, as an example. And again, I'm not trying to say that disparagingly. It's obviously
Absolutely.
done wonders
Mm-hmm.
for who it is we're talking about. But at the same time, I don't have to orient things to go map to that. I think people want options. I think you're going to start seeing stacks flatten. I think you're going to start seeing transformative change in market that's going to favor those that are agile, that are open, that are composable, that have capabilities to go do this at scale very quickly, both up market and down market. As a service provider, if I had my agency hat on, the core component here is transformation. I am no longer going to be, not that you have been, enriched by implementing platforms, regardless of stack. Those good old days have been long over. Like, they happen so fast. And I'm not saying there's no value in that. There's a lot of value and complexity in delivering it. There just isn't as much velocity or enrichment from it. And this is about transformation. How are you, as a service provider, helping your clients transform and take advantage of this new technology? The point you just made before about GameStop, how do you go enable that, right, internally within a mid-sized, small, or larger organization at scale? And I think that's the value add right now, is how do you go facilitate and execute against transformation? And yes, an implementation is part of that by proxy, and other things are part of that by proxy, but it's not the sun, the star, and the moon. So if you're not thinking of this transformationally, I think it's short-sighted. And if it's a lifestyle business with, like, a handful of guys and a German Shepherd in a church basement just building sites, great, maybe that's fine. But you've got a large growing company like yourself or other service providers, like, you need more meat on the bone, and you got to be able to drive value. And to me, I would be all in on transformation. The technology is actually catalyzing that. But in this transformation, you guys are really the belle of the ball, not the software providers. It's what are you doing with the software and the tech to go transform these businesses? And it's less about features and functions. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity for those service providers that buy into that thesis.
Yeah.
That's how I would be thinking about
Thank
it.
you. This is valuable. This is definitely the perspective I share. And we've seen the change happen almost overnight. Being over 15 years in this industry, never seen so much change in the past 3 months, like that in the years that I've seen in the past 3 months. I wanted to ask you also, as we are almost at time here, if I am your customer, if I'm operating my e-commerce channel on commerce products today, if I leverage your platform, your channel feeds, and I'm considering Makeswift for my possible headless build for the future, what would be your message to me today? How would you support me over the next months and years? And where do you see the biggest opportunity for me and you to grow together?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we're deliberately not a monolith. So I think, just because you run one product here does not mean that the other two products, as an example, are the right fit for you. I think, to the extent we think that there's a lot of synergy there, and this will evolve over time. I think philosophically, we want this done in a way where there's not a walled garden approach. We want people, like any other relationship in the world. You want to be with somebody because you want to be with somebody, not because you feel entrapped or stuck with somebody for a myriad of reasons. And by the way, none of those reasons are necessarily nefarious. Like, I don't think monolithic software providers are nefarious. Like, there's a reason why the monolith existed. It's the same reason why malls have existed. Like, it makes sense. Like, people would like one throat to choke. And, oftentimes those monoliths, either organically or inorganically, built a collection of capabilities that mapped to their ICP. And that makes a lot of sense. I think the markets is such now that the tech is way cheaper. It's way faster. There's far faster disruption where vendor lock-in has become a real thing. And if you had a criticism of the monoliths, it's not because it's bad software. I think people dog Salesforce all the time. I think they have a very capable commerce product. You might not like the licensing model. You might not like the complexity to go do what you need to do with it, but it's very capable of doing a lot of things. That being said, I think for us, if it objectively makes sense and aligns to your roadmap and where it is you're going, we want to make that ingestion and usage easy. We want to make it convenient. We want to make it frictionless. To the extent it doesn't, we don't want you locked into some sort of model where you feel like you're held hostage. And I know that sounds really cliche, and I'm not trying to come off as some sort of like altruist. I run a public company. Obviously, I'm here to drive shareholder value. But the reality of it is, and you know this, happy clients and being customer centric is the most important thing we could do. So whatever it is that we can do to drive happiness and satisfaction and clients that are going to be evangelically happy with what it is that we're doing. If you look at the best platforms, the best players in the space of all time, the one big consistency is that you had a lot of really happy installs, and that evangelistic nature of how happy they were attracted more, and it was authentic. The spirit behind all of this is, let's give folks a suite of tools that will drive material value to their business without locking them in a way that they feel good enough about it they want to tell everybody else. And that, I know that sounds very high level, but that's as simple as it is. It's just, you know, you can be imperfect in a lot of other ways. I use food analogies a lot because I'm an emotional eater, but like, if you got a really if your restaurant's got really good food, people will put up with a lot of inconvenience for that good food. And I'm not
That's
suggesting
right.
we're going to provide a lot of inconvenience. I'm just saying, like, people will wait in long lines. They will pay huge amounts of money for a good food. But what they will not do is do any of those things if the food is not great. And they will tell everybody how not great it is. So for us, we would love really good food. I would love to also provide amazing service and ambiance and everything else around that. I'm certainly not implying, we're going to run some horrible place where people are rude and you can't sit down. But that being said, I think really having it's customer centric and really staying aligned with where the market is going and being transparent about that with not just our customers, but our prospects and obviously folks like yourself, partners. It's super important to co-invest and partner more deeply going forward as to where we're going directionally. And that the hope there is to go orient that and point it towards specific cohorts, specific industries and sub industries to go drive value at the sub industry level, which you guys do as good as anybody in market. We just need to do more of it. And that's not a criticism of you, it's a criticism of us. So that's where my head is at.
Travis, thank you for this perspective. And I do think that with so many things changing around us, there are the core elements that we are seeing as staying at commerce.com. And we hope that you continue with those. And one of those is this customer centricity and listening to the actual feedback. We've never seen a case where you would be ignorant of that. Everything that we bring up to your attention, to your team, to your engineering, customer service team, always gets addressed in the most constructive way. That's why we partner with you. We make money partnering with you, implementing your solutions, but we also just genuinely enjoy working with your team, and kudos to all of them who are driving this change. And I want to also wish you best of luck with this. Godspeed. I hope you get a lot of tailwind with this change. Very much looking forward to the big summit upcoming in just a few days. For those of you who have not registered and are watching this and would like to learn more, come join us in Austin on August 18 and 19 for the BigCommerce Summit 2025, where a lot of us are going to be present and sharing the stories of different merchants generating value and being successful on the platform, and where you can actually provide your direct and honest feedback to the core team that's shaping the future of commerce.com. Travis, I thank you. Do you want to say any few parting words to the audience here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, parting words to you, Sergey. I mean, listen, you and I feel like we have a really candid and transparent relationship. The team feels just as strongly about you and your team. And I think, we're a rich history of partnerships here. So I think we're as good as the partners that we go to market with, obviously, and we jointly invest in. Um, I love the feedback. The feedback's not always positive, quite frankly. And I've sat, obviously in your shoes. I've sat as a service provider for many, 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 many years, which I do think gives me a unique perspective, both the good and the bad. And listen, I would encourage others watching this. I appreciate the transparency. I would rather hear how it really is. I think the same goes for my leadership team. And I think that's something that we're really trying to be deliberate about, being better listeners and better absorbers of input and having that influence, again, what it is that we're doing. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the medium, certainly, to talk about this. And, certainly appreciate the partnership. That goes without saying. And I look forward to your toast every year at Summit. It's always the best toast we get. So.
Shall we say we mean business together? Come up with something great that will stay in the memory.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
very much looking forward to seeing you. And again, kudos to the team and everybody watching this. Thank you for your time. And we hope to see you at the summit. And if not, just share your opinion and feedback with us, and we'll be back soon. Thank you so much.